Hey, now it's letting me go live. Sorry, honestly, I was here on time and trying to go live, but when a live is connected to a Facebook event, it just has issues. So hopefully I am live now and people can find me. Yes, there's Christopher. Yeah, Christopher, I was sitting there talking to myself and the live thing was just circling, circling, circling. So I had to then, hey Bryce, I had to X off the internet, go back in, start a whole nother thing, and disconnect this from the live event. And I was able to go live. Yay. So here I am. Um, we get lots of new people here all the time. And so people don't know who I am. So I am Jax West. I am from Stephen Avery Project. I guess I should mute my speakers. Stephen Avery Project. We have a closed group, MAM Gossip, and also for new people, a lot of times I don't know what MAM is. That is Making a Murderer. MAM Gossip is our closed group where it's just what it says. We get into some of the nasty stuff that goes on in this case. And then I also have Justice with Jax. That's where I talk about other cases. And my two other cases that I do are Melissa Kaluzinski and Marnie Yang. And actually, I was just at the prison today that both Melissa and Marnie are in visiting with Melissa. And Melissa, thumbs up, Nana. Um, Melissa surprised me with getting our picture taken, and then I forgot it in my car. I have posted the picture on my personal page, and I will be posting it on Justice with Jax if you're interested in seeing a picture of me with Melissa Kaluzinski today. So, we're going to be going over a lot of basic stuff since I have not done a live video in a while. And when I did the live videos the other day, got a lot of who are you, what are you. So my name again is Jax West. And I am just somebody who watched Making a Murderer when it came out and fell down the rabbit hole and have been involved in this case ever since. And shameless plug, I self-published on Amazon. This is my book, Wrongfully Abused, Making an Advocate for Stephen Avery by Jax West. You can get that on Amazon. And that talks about my experience with this case. A lot of drama. And people will ask all the time about why don't I do this with Stephen? Why don't I do that with Stephen? People have poisoned, hello Shane, people have poisoned Stephen against me. And so I no longer have any contact with Stephen. I used to go and visit him in the prison. Um, so used to visit him and we would talk on the phone, but a lot of people in Stephen's family are pieces of Smurf, me trying not to swear, so pieces of Smurf, and they're constantly trying to make money off the case, off supporters. And when Stephen's mom wasn't doing well, they had a fundraiser for her. And I know from my personal experience, a lot of the people in the family, it's like 1, 2 for you, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for me. So I advised people if you truly wanted to help Dolores, that you could either send money by putting it on Stephen's books, because Stephen can send money out of the prison, or to go to KathleenTZellner.com. She's got a link on there to a PayPal. And thank you, Kevin. She's got a PayPal on there. And so you could donate the money to Kathleen. And hey, Amy, and you can then, email Kathleen and say, I sent X amount of dollars that I want to go towards helping Dolores. Sadly, a few years ago, Dolores died. And that was a big, ugly thing, again, to talk about what pieces of Smurf, or Kevin can finish that word. Um, oh, Oz. Ooh. Um, the last few, like the last year of Dolores's life, the family took her from Stephen. They put Dolores in a home. Um, I don't fault them for that. Dolores had issues and she needed professional um, help, but they would try and hide where she is from Stephen and then wouldn't let, when Stephen would try to call, they wouldn't let him talk to his mom. So there's so many things about that family that they have done that they have not been supportive of Stephen. And then the people who say they're like his biggest supporters, they then told him that I was telling people not to help his mom. And his mom was the person he loved the best. His mom was his number one supporter. She was there for him from day one. And I don't blame Stephen for being upset if he thought I was doing his mom wrong. But then again, I do blame Stephen because we went through this already where people told him lies about me. And then Stephen and I didn't talk for 6 months. And then he called me out of the blue. When I answered the phone, he's like, bet you're surprised to hear from me. And I told him on that phone call, please, in the future, if somebody's telling you that I say and do something, can you please talk to me first before acting on it and let me tell you my side of things? And he said he would do that, and then it happened again. So I went a while without talking to Stephen, and then somebody reached out to me, because Stephen's always got these supporters who then think they're doing his bidding. And so they reached out to Stephen Avery Project to say that Stephen asked them to reach out to me because he wanted Stephen Avery Project to post that his mother had died. And at that point, I had not seen anything about Dolores dying. And I'm not one of those with fake accounts that go spy on other people. I have no interest in what's going on in the family pages. So I didn't know if that was true or false. So I always go straight to Kathleen Zellner. And so I emailed her and asked her if it was true that Dolores died. And then Kathleen said she hadn't heard that. Let her check and she'll get back to me. And so then, yes, it was determined that Dolores had died. And so we put that up so people would know. And then the person said, Stephen wanted me to say this, that, and the other. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to take orders from people who say they know Stephen. Stephen has my number, and if he wants to tell me something, he needs to tell me himself. So Stephen then called me, and because this has happened to me a lot over the 10 years of Making a Murderer, is Stephen will ask me to do something, and then I do it, and then the Making a Murderer community gets mad at me. Stephen once asked me to purposely poke at his sister Barb to see how much poking I need to do to see what she would end up saying. And, if new evidence, new stuff would come out. And so many people who don't do their research on this case, and they just have sympathy for the family and don't know truly what this family has done. So me poking at Barb upset people because then I look like this big old bully. But so Stephen this time wanted me to post stuff because the family was trying to make money now on Dolores' death and asking for people to donate money to go towards her services and all that. And Stephen wanted me to put out that nobody needed to donate any money. His dad, like a lot of people do, had already purchased years ago where he and his wife would eventually be buried. And that, so that was already paid for. And so was like a service and all that, that no money was needed for this. So, but that's the last time I have heard from Stephen. But I, just like the bulk of you here, I am not a supporter of this case so I could talk to Stephen. So Stephen doesn't have to like me or talk to me for me to follow the facts and see that this is a huge injustice and Stephen Avery is 100% innocent. Christopher, our moderator, has deleted a comment that is from a guilter. I say this all the time. So, Stephen Avery Project is a supporter page. We are not going to debate guilt or innocence. On this page, we know Stephen is innocent. I am not taking away your First Amendment right. We will get that a lot of me trying to silence people. You're not silenced. There's plenty of Facebook pages out there where you can go talk about Stephen. Paul Kaluzinski, Melissa's dad. Melissa and I took a new picture today. She surprised me for the holiday for a picture, and I posted it on my personal page. So, Paul Kaluzinski, everybody. Melissa Kaluzinski. You see the butterfly back here? I'm really bad at doing this. That's for Melissa. And she is also represented by Kathleen Zellner and is in prison and wrongfully accused. So, nice to see you, Paul. Where was I before Squirrel? Oh, Guilters. So you can go to any other page you want. There's Guilter page, all that, to go talk about your feelings on Stephen being guilty. We're not debating it here. So any comments that get posted here saying that Stephen is guilty will get deleted and you will be banned. If you watch this, we're live right now. It's 4:20 on Tuesday, December 30th. So if you watch this anytime after that, Christopher regularly goes through the comments on all of our posts and our videos and whatnot. And so any comments you make later trying to say that Stephen or Brendan are guilty will be deleted and you will be banned. And that will be that. What else did Christopher want me? Let me pull up on my phone because Christopher gave me a whole list of things that he wants me to talk about today, going off of my live videos that we did the other day. Let me talk about those live videos. It's the Debbie Show, Debbie and Natalie. So typically once a year, I go up to Manitowoc and we drive around to all the places that are involved in this case. I can never, and Bryce was with me on the trip. He's gone with me the last couple times. And so I was discussing it with him. And I think the next time I go, I will make the announcement that we're going to go on the field trip. The reason I don't put it out there is because of my non-relationship with the family. And in the past, when I went into the Redant deer camp and I was live. And I believe I was doing this in MAM Gossip, which is a closed private group. But, you get fake people in there all the time watching it. Um, and so I was walking in the Redont deer camp, which that's in between Cuss Road and the salvage yard. And I wanted to show just how close Cuss Road really is to the salvage yard. But the Avery family reported me to the Redont that I was walking. Did I ever find that? Did that guy ever find the dog? Yeah, that was on the video. Um, so I like 2 months later or whatever, I got a ticket in the mail saying I was trespassing. And Earl Avery, and it's been a while since I've posted the screenshots of when Earl was texting me saying the things that Earl said to me. I have those screenshots somewhere. But Earl accused me of what he called trust passing, whatever. So, and then Earl would always, he'd be threatening me and stuff and telling me that I can't even go by the Avery sign because he's saying he rents that land and that's his property, and blah, blah, blah. So, I've always tried to keep it secret when I'm gonna pop up there. Oh, good, Paul. That's nice to hear. Good. I'm glad you're doing okay. Um, So, but I think next time I go, I will let you know what we're going to do. Because, yeah, people were thinking, because, yeah, it is the 10-year anniversary, that we were just going to be here to talk about the case and 10 years of making a murderer. And then here I am just doing these quick little videos as we're driving around Manitowoc. So we started at the Avery Salvage Yard, and there were no trespassing signs. And I don't know the full deal on what has happened with the salvage yard. And that's Amy's asking, did they sell the salvage yard? And no, Earl is Stephen's brother. He's the youngest Avery boy. So there's people that say the salvage yard was sold. It does say that the salvage yard is closed. I don't know what is going on there. Alan Avery has not owned the salvage yard in a long, long time. Alan had given the salvage yard to his sons. So Earl and Chuck were on there forever. So I don't know who owns a salvage yard and who is truly there. When you Google the salvage yard, it says closed, you know, or so. And now when we just went there, there's no trespassing signs, like I said. So we drove completely down Avery Road and drove all the way to the end by where Barb's and Stephen had lived, where the last I knew, Chuck had bought Barb's trailer and Chuck was living there. And there was a bunch of cars parked there. Avery family, Katie, not the Hallbachs have never done anything to me. So, if you go to that video, the first one that I took that day that's titled Avery Salvage Yard, you'll see that I drove completely down Avery Road, showing you those trailers. I was also pointing out, and I have a video just of this that I've done back years ago when I was friendly with the family and they were allowing me to walk all over the salvage yard. My husband and I took a video where I stood down by where Barb's trailer is, and my husband was down where the mailboxes are. And so when the bus driver dropped off the two younger Dassey boys, she drops them at the post office. And now remember, this bus driver claims that she saw Teresa Halbach taking pictures of the minivan. But my video, my husband standing at the mailboxes and me down standing where that van had been, and I was wearing, I believe it was like a bright orange shirt, and I was literally holding a camera at that time too, because I was taking pictures with a real camera. And so first my husband was zoomed in, so you saw me, and then he zoomed out like what you would see with your eye. You can't tell, who's standing there, guy, girl, what color they're wearing, nothing. So there is no way possible that that bus driver could have seen Teresa Halbach in front of Barb's trailer, because the school bus doesn't drive all the way down Avery Road like that. You turn around where the office is right at the start there. So I've got it's Justice with Jack's YouTube channel. And so then there's all these different, what are they called? Folders? I don't know. I don't even remember. Where all my videos are, because all the live videos on Facebook, they changed something earlier this year where live videos will only be up on Facebook for 30 days and then they're going to delete them. So I uploaded everything I downloaded it to my computer and uploaded it to the Justice with Jack's YouTube. So you can go there and go through where I've, interviewed people. I've been to Manitowoc several times, all that. And so same thing will happen with this video and the videos that I took on our last field trip. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I will upload them all to the YouTube so you can get those. But so you'll see that in the video that we just did, that I was showing again, that, we were steadily driving. So it's not the best view of it, but it's clear that there's no way the bus driver could have seen Teresa Halbach. And I have always wanted to talk to the bus driver. I really want, because where is she going to say that she saw her taking pictures? Because Bobby Dassey, and Steven for that matter, so would park cars down by the office. And she could take pictures of there. So, and I'm not upset with the bus driver, and I totally get her not wanting to be out publicly, because some of the things that have been done to people, like the guy Curtis who started this Paige Stephen Avery project, what the family did to chase that guy off, horrible. They went for his marriage, they went for his kids, and this was Stephen's niece and Stephen's sister, and so Stephen's brothers. So I don't blame somebody for not wanting to publicly be involved in this case, because it can be scary. But as I think Bryce just said to somebody, anything you know about this case, and on the videos that I posted from our field trip, I saw we already know about Kevin Romlo, and I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, but Kevin Romlo is the guy who is that Kathleen has an affidavit from him stating that he saw the RAV4 parked at the turnaround, and then he told Andy Colburn at the Senex station about it. And so that guy was just posting on the video this week. And then there's a woman who came to us a couple years ago saying she saw the RAV4 at that turnaround, and Chuck and Bobby seen there. So I knew about those two people, and now there was a third person on there saying that they saw the RAV4 at the turnaround. Now, usually when I get information like that, I then send it to Kathleen Zellner, and I also tell people, to reach out to Kathleen. I have not sent her that information yet because Melissa asked me last week. Melissa will text me and ask me to reach out to Kathleen Zellner on her behalf for different things. And so she had asked me to reach out to Kathleen on something, and I did, and I didn't hear back from her. And I don't always hear back from Kathleen, but a lot of times I do hear back from her right away. And I haven't heard back from her on this thing at all. So I'm wondering if, it is the holidays. So maybe she's away or something. So I want to wait until after January 5th, when typically everything, goes back to normal. But if you are that person, that third person now that was posting that you saw the RAV4 at the turnaround, please reach out to Kathleen Zellner. Her website is KathleenTZellner.com. She has a page just for Stephen's case. And when you're on that page, there is an email and a phone number that is just for Stephen case. And then she also has on there is a PayPal that if you wanted to donate to Stephen's defense, you can donate there. So, yeah, please, if you have any information on the case. Okay, one of the things I'm looking at Christopher's list now of things. One of the things that we get tons of comments on is why can't Trump pardon Stephen? And I do not want this to get into a political bash fest. Okay, I know people have their political sides. I work in politics. I'm actually running for office too. So not only do I work for a state representative, now I'm running for my own office. So I am extremely political. This page is not a place to argue about your politics, whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump. This is not the place for it. Trump is supposed to only be able to pardon on federal cases. Stephen's case and Brendan's case are state cases. So the president cannot pardon Stephen or Brendan. The governor of Wisconsin is the only one who could pardon either one of them or give them clemency. And it's, yes, Debbie, because it's a state issue. And the governor of Wisconsin, when he got elected, had said that he was never going to overturn a conviction. And in order for him to grant clemency, they have to have served X amount of their time before it would be even considered. So sadly, where Stephen and Brendan are, it's not in that time frame. I don't recall what that time frame is, but so he's not going to do it. Something else I should say on that is I know people like to write letters and calls and emails and all that, reaching out to the governor and putting on my political hat. Politics, dirty business, and most times politicians don't care what anybody has to say if they are not one of their residents. So if you do not live in Wisconsin, he doesn't care what you have to say because you can't vote for him. So, and there's also been so many petitions over the years. The petitions don't do anything. You can always send anything that, if you want to email the governor, if you want to email the prison, whatever, you can always send an email or a letter. But I'm just telling you, constituents, that's what I was looking for, Brian. Thank you. You complete me. They don't care unless you're a constituent. So Oh, yeah, and Brad Schimmel will never let that happen. So that's one of our top questions. Why can't Trump just pardon them? Can't. The number two thing Christopher wanted me to talk about is why doesn't Stephen interact personally with Stephen Avery Project? I went over that already at the beginning, and you can read my book where I talk about that too. I do consider if I should reach, because I haven't talked to Stephen, like I said, since his mom died, and I wonder if I was to reach out to him, if how he would receive that. How old is Stephen now? I don't even know. Somebody else tell me how old Stephen is. I'm trying to remember. I'm really bad at numbers. International pressure on will not do anything. No, they don't care. Number three thing Christopher wanted me to talk about is he's never getting out. That so many people will post and be a Debbie Downer on it. And 63, thank you, Kevin. And I get that. Okay. I get the feeling like he's never going to get out. And, I guess that's the heart and the brain thing too of, hey, Corey, the system is so corrupt, and Stephen should not be there. Brendan should not be there. So this is just craziness. They should be out. But it just seems, and Melissa and I were talking about this today actually, that when somebody's corrupt, then everybody else helps cover it up for years and years. Melissa's going on, I don't know if Paul's still on here, I think it's 17 years. Because she was talking about it because January next month is the anniversary of the tragic event in Melissa's case. And then Melissa was saying everything falls on the same days as it did 17 years ago, so this is a Monday, that stuff. So, yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm getting distracted in talking about Melissa. So, oh, this just went up here. Let me go back to, there we go. So it's kind of a bummer when people post he's never getting out. We tried to stay positive, so John says, why is Brendan still locked up? I thought he got off with his case. No, that got overturned, John. So it got overturned, and then it went to the Seventh Circuit. It was at the Seventh Circuit here in Chicago. And so when it went to the Seventh Circuit for Brendan, the first one, it was a panel of 3 judges. And so in that panel of 3, 2 out of the 3 overturned it in Brendan's favor. And then right away, the state, made sure that Brendan couldn't be released. And they called for, I don't know how this is pronounced, an en banc, EN space BANC. And so then that meant all 7 judges. And I went to that one too. And the majority of the 7 kept Brendan in prison. And while we're talking about Brendan here too, it's Brendan's case sadly has pretty much exhausted all opportunities to get back into court. So that's why really all that's left for Brendan is for the governor to let him go, or, the real killer, Bobby Dassey, comes out. But if Stephen is released, if Stephen was to get a trial or whatever, and he then is it's ruled not guilty, that doesn't mean Brendan would get to go home. because there are people who think that everything that Brendan said was true, but he just pinned it on Steven instead of Bobby. And the tough thing in Brendan's case is that Brendan confessed. We all know that that's a coerced confession. You can go find his complete confession online and watch all of it. That boy was coerced into that false confession. So, but he confessed. Steven, on the other hand, has never confessed. And another thing that Melissa and I talked about today is because when Melissa was talking to me about when she thinks of the dates that are involved in her case, she remembers them exactly. Everything that happened that day. It's all in her head that, and I'm like, have you ever written it down? Is there like an affidavit or anything? And she said, yes, she has written it down before and gave it to Kathleen. And I said, I would love for her to now write down now what she recalls of that day. And then let's compare it to what she wrote 17 years ago. Because one of the things I've always said about Steven is his story doesn't change. And why is that? Because when you're telling the truth, you're telling something of what actually happened. So that's why it stays consistent. When you lie and, having to come up with story after story, it's hard to remember what lie you told because it didn't happen. So Steven is always consistent and has always said that he didn't do anything. And my husband is real big on defending Steven because is Steven an angel? No. And when he does wrong, when confronted on it, so like the whole pulling his cousin over and pointing a gun at her, when the cops first came to his house, he denied it at first. It wasn't him. But then when it's known it was him, that there was no getting out of it, he's like, yeah, I did this. Same thing when broke into the bar and they stole rolls of quarters and sandwiches or whatever. Steven admits what he does. And there's never been any confession from Steven. There's no jailhouse confession of a snitch saying Steven said anything. So, Steven's story remains consistent. Brendan's story changed and changed and changed. And why did Brendan's story change? Because they were leading that horse to water. But Brendan wasn't understanding what they were trying to get to. What did you do to Teresa? What did you do to her head? Punched her? And you can hear in his voice too, the voice is going up, which is a questioning thing. Punched her? Cut her hair? He's grasping. He doesn't know what they want him to say. And he's just, at that time, a 16-year-old boy with not much life experience, a low IQ, not much real world experience. He's not street smart, not book smart. He's just a sweet boy. Doesn't know what they want him to say. And then eventually it's, I'm just going to come out and say it. Who shot her in the head? And he goes, Steven, because, he's not going to say he did it. He's going to say, then Steven did it. But there's no evidence to that whatsoever. And I do not understand how two people can be charged for the same crime, but two totally different things. So in Brendan's case, she is chained to Steven's bed, Oh, and that reminds me, somebody made a comment on one of the videos this week of saying Steven's guilty because he had arm and leg chains. Okay, please. I know people are all, like I've said before, they're new to the case, and you haven't fallen down the rabbit hole like many of us have that have been here for the 10 years. The handcuffs that Stephen had were pink fuzzy handcuffs that you get in a sex shop. Okay, so please, please. And Barb, at that time, Yanda, now Tadak, Barb had the same ones. So please, oh my God, saying he's guilty because he had these pink fuzzy handcuffs, whatever. That these pink handcuffs then have none of Teresa's DNA on it. So, but in Brendan's case, there's rape, there's cutting her hair, there's cutting her throat, there's dragging her out of there, and no DNA of Teresa, and also no DNA of Brendan in Steven's trailer. So Steven, not the, yep, Bryce, yeah, Steven and Barb actually were together when they each bought those furry handcuffs. So Steven, not the cleanest person. And his girlfriend at the time, she's a drunk and she was in jail. So it's only Steven in the trailer. Jody is in the, in jail. So, and we know that Steven says that he had cut his finger and had gotten blood on his sink and he didn't clean it up right away. He then went with his brother Chuck to a hardware store or something. And he left the blood there. He didn't clean it up right away. But then it dawned on him the next day that the blood wasn't there and he didn't clean it up and he's the only one in his trailer. Jody is in jail. Nobody else is going in Steven's trailer. Something else and I'm going to keep going as I say something and it's going to remind me of something else. So, I'm going to keep getting off track here. So you guys will have to get me back on there. But the trailer that Steven lived in was not owned by the Avery family. That was owned by a friend of Alan Avery, Raleigh or Rowley. I always never know for how that's pronounced, Raleigh or Rowley. So Raleigh Johnson, who testified in Steven's trial. So if you go get the transcripts of his trial, you can see where Raleigh testifies. So, but Raleigh had a trailer, his hunting trailer, and he needed to put it someplace. And so he bought that section of land of the salvage yard from Alan Avery and put his trailer there. And then Jody and Steven were renting it from Raleigh. And almost everything in that trailer was Raleigh's. Jody brought a mattress and a desk. Everything else was Raleigh's, including the Marlin Warfield. Oh, it's been a long time since I've been thinking about what kind of gun that was that they got Steven on. And my husband's probably not watching this right now because my husband's the gun expert. But so Steven had that rifle was hanging over the bed, but it was Raleigh's that he had there. All right. Now, Steven was confused on this because while Steven was a felon at that time due to pointing the gun at his cousin, running her off the road and pointing the gun at the cousin. So he was a felon and is not allowed to own a firearm. But like a dinner rollie. Okay, thanks, Bryce. But he was able to get a hunting license. So how can he get a hunting license if he's a felon and can't have a gun? So that's what and people get confused on this too. Stephen was going to be doing time no matter what, because what they took him originally into custody for was a felon having a gun in his possession. So he was going to do time for that. How much time you would get for that, I don't know. So, but my husband always gets upset, and he was discussing this because my husband was driving Bryce and I around to all these places. And my husband questions the, what is it called? Do you have a, Bryce, help me, when they want to search? A warrant. So the warrant that they had to search the property said to search Avery property. Well, where Stephen lived is not Avery property, it's Rollie Johnson property. So should anything they find in the trailer be tossed? Because that it wasn't on the warrant to go into Rollie Johnson's property? Brian says he would do 18 months for the weapon. Thank you. But as Phil says, definitely not 20 years, right? Yeah. So there's some little stuff on that. Oh, and also, I believe it's in Making a Murderer Part 2, the second season, whatever you want to call it, where Kathleen goes more in depth on Rollie used to go shooting around the salvage yard all the time. And Kathleen, the badass that she is, was even shooting into the garage. And so they're shooting at varmints or whatever. And so there's going to be, my husband being such a gun aficionado. And then I feel like such a dork when I don't know the proper words of things. So are the shells, are casings, is that all the same thing? But they're shooting around a salvage yard. They're not going to pick up the brass, right? It's all over the place. So when they find, however many months later, I don't even recall what it is, that they then find that one shell in Stephen's garage, and the DNA on there with a waxy substance. I mean, everything is suspect. Anything that they have DNA wise that they're saying that proves Stephen's guilt, to me, everything should be tossed because everything is tainted. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole on Kratz saying to her, to big hair Sherry Culhane, right? That's her name. Place her in the house or garage. And also, they go to the Halbach house, take things from Teresa's house, and they bring it to Stephen's. Why is evidence from Teresa's being brought to Stephen's? Why wouldn't it go directly to a lab? Everything is tainted. Everything is tainted. There's also a lab guy so Stephen's Grand Am was taken in, and then the RAV4 is there, and the tech did not take his gloves off in between cars. So you're touching something in Stephen's Grand Am, and then you're touching the hood latch. So transference. They've done such a crappy job. The bones, where they say that Stephen never left the salvage yard, and Teresa never left the salvage yard. The way they want to tell it is Bobby Dassey is looking out his window, and last thing he sees is Teresa Halbach walking towards Stephen's trailer. And then, she's never seen again, and nobody ever sees her off that property. But they find bones And I was just showing this to Melissa today, where I was just showing her on the table. I'm like, you've got the salvage yard. Then you have the Verdant quarry. Then you have, the deer camp. Then you have the Manitowoc quarry or whatever it's called. So the Manitowoc quarry is the farthest away in this, and bones are found there. Okay. Um, but you've got Kratz, um, sweaty sweat sweat, saying these aren't the droids you're looking for. Um, we're not even going to talk about those bones because Stephen and Teresa never left the salvage yard. Yet, when Kathleen Zellner comes on the case in January of 2016, and she talks to the state, and she says she wants the bones and she wants the RAV4 test. They give her the runaround. Oh, there's so much on that runaround that they gave Kathleen, including when one of the dum-dums call Kathleen and leave a voicemail, but they don't know it was Kathleen they were calling, and they say things that then she's got the recording of. And it was a supporter who, going through all the evidence, was able to see that they gave the bones that was in the Manitowoc quarry or gravel pit, I don't know which one's which, to the Halbach family. Why? Why is that going to the Halbach family? First of all, evidence has to remain in evidence as long as the defendant is still got a path to court and overturning their conviction. You cannot give away evidence. Okay? So there's that. In order to give that away, Stephen would have to approve of it. And I know people have said, oh, well, the Halbach family needs closure. Why would the Halbach family need closure to have these bones that you're saying Teresa never left there? So those wouldn't be Teresa's bones. And I don't know for sure what's happened with those bones. So one of the things I did on this field trip, that we went to the cemetery where Teresa Halbach is, and a lot of guilters said that that's disrespectful for me to go. I do not feel that it is disrespectful. I am not being negative to Teresa Halbach. Several times over the years when I've gone to the cemetery, I've brought flowers for Teresa. I am respectful when I am at the cemetery, but I want to show people the tombstone where Teresa Halbach is. I do not know if the bones they were given, if that's in there. I do not know if now the bones that they got from the quarry, if those then in the years later got mixed in with those, but it's now you can't ever test them again because it's tainted. And another thing, when I go to the cemetery, I show people, and I know I said this on the live, and so some people have said I'm insensitive by saying Teresa's uncle stepdaddy, but that is true. Teresa's father died, and then her mother married her brother-in-law. So she married her dead husband's brother. And so on the other side of the tombstone where Teresa is, it has her mother's name and it has her uncle's name. And as far as I can tell, her father is not in that cemetery. So, and there are a lot of Halbachs in that cemetery, but her father is not. Okay. Bryce messaging me that he had to drop off. So I don't mean any disrespect. I am not saying anything negative about Teresa Halbach. I say us, the supporters of Stephen, we're the ones that care more about Teresa Halbach than guilters do, because I want truth and justice for Teresa. So for whatever happened, Teresa, to come out. And I'm somebody who's just going to follow the evidence, right? And if there was ever anything to point to Stephen's guilt, I would say so. I am a proud flip-flopper. If you are able to show me evidence on why what I think is wrong and show me science, proofs, timelines, screenshots, I will do an about face. And with what has happened to me over these 10 years being involved in this case, the way the Avery family has come for me, has come from my husband. I have been reported to my Illinois Attorney General. I have been reported to my local police department. They have gone after my husband's business. They have written phony Yelp reviews about my husband's business. I mean, there's been a lot of nastiness that has been done to me over the years. So it would be an easier road for me to go, he's guilty. But he's not. I'm a wrong is wrong and right is right. And what has been done to Stephen and Brendan is wrong. So I will be here till the end, because all of the evidence points to Stephen's and Brendan's innocence. You can see also over on the Justice with Jax YouTube, there is this, I will call it a mockumentary, done by, what is that chick's name, Christopher? The Convicting a Murderer, whatever that stupid piece of crap is called. And so we'll get comments from guilters every time we make posts going that you guys have just been manipulated by a one-side documentary. You need to watch Convicting a Murderer, blah, blah, blah. So I watched all of that Convicting a Murderer, and I did live videos after every episode where when I watched it, I took notes. Candace, there you go. Ugh. So I took notes, and then I went over what they claimed in each one of those episodes. Candace Owens. Thank you, Katie. So you can go to the Justice with Jax YouTube and go watch those, where I then refute. I think I even called the videos like refuting Convicting a Murderer or something like that. So, and I believe Christopher might have even reached out to Candace Owens, right? And tried to do okay, let's have a debate between me and Candace. Her, that we do a podcast, live video, something, her versus me. But she wouldn't do it. So, and I find it funny for people to say that you're swayed by a one-sided documentary, but then they watch Convicting a Murderer and they think that's the end-all be-all. So it is not. Did Making a Murderer cover every single thing that happened in this case? No, it can't. There's so much. They have to cut some things out. And when you do the deep dive, the more you find out, the more it points to their innocence, not guilt. So, Christopher, Candace wanted nothing to do with us. Yeah. So, we're always going to hear about Convicting a Murderer. People are going to constantly bring that up and try and be haha, he's guilty because of this. No, though, maybe I need to post those videos again to show why all that stuff is wrong. Okay, looking at Christopher's notes. Okay, I covered the stepdaddy uncle. Okay, next thing. Oh, wait. So Carol just messaged asking, do I believe there are two RAV4s? So I will jump into that one right now. No, I do not believe there are two RAV4s. I believe Teresa's, the color of her car, I don't remember at this time now what they said. Is it mystic teal? In some light looks blue and in some light looks green. And my cars I've had do the same thing. And my car is blue, but in some light looks black. And even when I took that car that I was at the Redont deer camp and I got that trespassing ticket, the cops wrote on my ticket that my car was black. My car is not black. My car is blue. So I do not believe there are two cars. I think that in one light it looks blue, in one light it looks green. Now, if evidence came out to show that there are two, I wouldn't be surprised because there's so much manipulation and just covering crap up that if there were two, I'm not surprised. But do I personally think there are two RAV4s? I do not. And Christopher wanted me to talk about is Teresa dead or alive? Now, I know there's a lot of people who do talk about thinking Teresa Halbach is still alive. I personally do not think she is alive. I don't see why they would do that. I know 300 or $36 million, right? That's what it was. So 36 million reasons, but I just don't see how this young girl from what is that, St. John Church or whatever it is, that she would just leave her family. You know, she was very close to her two younger sisters, and she coached her sisters like volleyball team or something. I just don't see how this young girl is gonna leave her family and go into like a protection thing for what? I so I do not think she is alive. What actually happened to her? We don't know. The only people who know are whoever did whatever happened to her. You know, you can't say, I know Kratz, Sweaty Sweat Sweat, wants to say she was raped, she was this, she was that, she was, those, as I say, are his sexual fantasies when he talks about that. You don't know. So did Bobby rape and kill her? He could have, but there's no evidence saying she was raped. There's no evidence to say she was stabbed, she was shot. There's nothing. We don't know what happened to her. We just know she is gone. So I just don't think that she's alive out there. I don't. But I don't truly know what happened to her. But what everything points to, in my view, is Bobby Dassey with an assist from Scott Taddock. Why is that? Well, Bobby was obsessed with Teresa Halbach. Teresa had been to the salvage yard several times prior, and he knew she was coming this day because she said something to Stephen about it. On one of my visits with Stephen, he told me about it, that Bobby's like teasing about Teresa Halbach coming, and the Dassey boys all clearly knew she was coming because she was coming to take a picture of Barb's car, and Barb told the boys to clean the van before, the day before, so she could take the pictures. So they clearly knew that Teresa Halbach was coming, and Bobby was obsessed with her. And then you've got all the things on the Kratz and likes to say the Dassey computer. But while it all the Dassey boys could use the computer, it was in Bobby's bedroom. They'll lie and say it was out in the living room, but their own photographs of the crime scene showed that the computer was in Bobby's room. Then all this disgusting stuff that was on that computer is being done at a time that only Bobby is home. Barb's at work. Brian's at work. And Brian wasn't really living there anymore. He was with his girlfriend. Barb was separated from Tom Yonda. So Tom wasn't at the trailer. And Scott Taddock, I don't know if it was completely out in the open that she was with Scott at the time. That I don't think Scott was like regularly over at the trailer. That's why Barb was going over to Scott's trailer. And Brendan and I'm blanking on what the other boy's name is. Were at school. And I know that Steven's niece, Carla, who is one of the biggies that tries to profit off this case for herself, but she likes to claim that Steven could have gone in to the Dassey trailer and looked this stuff up. Please. Steven had his own computer. As I said earlier, Jody the drunk is in jail. So if you're going to look up disgusting stuff, wouldn't you do it in your own home that nobody else is going to be there? Why would you go into your sister's place to go do it on her computer? You wouldn't. So Bobby Dassey's the only one there when that stuff is going on that computer. Period. And then you have that Barb Taddock tried to get her ex-stepson to wipe the computer. There's so much that points to Bobby. Then you have the crisscross that Scott and Bobby say they just happened to be driving past each other, that, they looked at the time so they know the exact time that they passed each other. And Scott's going hunting this way and Bobby's going hunting at Scott's house this way, or the reverse. I don't know which way is which. Please. Hello, New Zealand. No, did not happen. Then you have Bobby's cell phone is pinging off a different area than where he said he was, and that where his phone was is over by that cuss road. What else is there? I say I've forgotten more stuff. Blaine, there you go. Thank you, Angela. Blaine, that's not a name. That's an appliance. Anybody remember that movie? Teresa's asking me, do I think that Barb helped Bobby move the RAV? No. I do not think Barb helped. I do not think Barb knows anything. I believe Barb is see no, hear no, speak no. I 100% believe that she loves all her boys. I think she's choosing to not hear the facts. And she's just ignoring it and wants to say that all of her kids are innocent. But now remember, we've got Blaine saying when he was on the school bus, he saw Bobby driving the RAV4. Why would Blaine say that? Then you also have that Barb posted on Facebook that Bobby told her that he never even saw Teresa Halbach that day. No, I don't think Barb was blackmailed. I do not think Barb was blackmailed. I think she is a mother who loves her sons, and she's trying to she doesn't believe, she's not letting herself hear anything and just wants to believe that all her boys are innocent. But I do think there's possibly a thing in there that they thought when this was going down that Brendan being underage would mean that he wouldn't serve a lot of time, and that Brendan possibly was sacrificed. Um, and I've got a history with Barb. I actually liked her. I've been in Barb's home. I interviewed Barb, Scott, and Pete in their home. Um, I liked Scott at that time. This was before I thought Scott had anything to do with it. Um, but yeah, I don't think Barb is any part of covering up for a murderer. Um, but then by not doing anything, you're you're keeping Brendan and Stephen in prison for something they didn't do to then protect somebody who, what else has Bobby and or Scott done in these last, this happened in 2005, right? Was it 2005? Um, so who knows, who else has been hurt. And, but even if Bobby and Scott lived stellar lives after doing whatever they did to Teresa Halbach, it's still not fair for these two guys to be in prison for all this time. Thank you, John. Um, because Stephen, they've stolen most of his life. He was taken at 22 for the Penny Bernstein case, and then was only out for 2 years before they took him again. So he has not really got to have a life. And then for Brendan, it's even worse. Because Brendan was taken at 16. So Brendan has never been able to be a free adult. And I used to talk to Brendan on the phone, and he used to write to me. And I haven't heard from Brendan in a long time because his mom told him he wasn't allowed to talk to me anymore. But when I would talk to Brendan, he would talk to me about Pokemon, and his favorite food is, pizza or hamburger and all. He is, at that time, was still like that 16-year-old boy, you know? So these two men, and for Stephen just wants to be in love so badly, and that's how he gets manipulated a lot. And we're not even going to go into that chick and Dr. Phil and all that crap. But he wants to be in love. He wants a family, and that's been taken from him. Brendan did not get to go to a school dance. Didn't get to get a driver's license. Hasn't ever, well, he had kind of a girlfriend at one point, but he hasn't been able to be in love. Nothing. This is so sad. And Scott, I talked about this earlier. It was overturned. When it was ruled for Brendan to be released, that was a panel of 3 judges. The state then called for the en banc, which is 7, and the majority of the 7 said that he needs to stay in prison. So, yeah, that was so foul of Dr. Phil. Crap, don't even get me started on. Oh my God, Dr. Phil. Horrible. Um, so there's just so much that proves that Stephen and Brendan are innocent. And the more you dig, the more you see they are innocent. Um, okay. Okay. I'm okay. I'm done going over Christopher's things that he wanted me to talk about. Oh, Christy's asking what happened to with Dr. Phil. Um, I'm gonna try and make this brief, and because I know we get a lot of people on here who haven't been with the case all this time. So there was this woman who I thought she was very pretty. Um, and she started writing to Stephen. She also sent Stephen pictures of her in a bikini. And so Stephen and her started some kind of a relationship. Stephen's thinking they're in love. And this is going to be his wife. And she went on Dr. Phil. And it was even, they made it a 2-part episode. And so, like, the first part is all of her just talking about her relationship with Steven, blah, blah, blah. But then the second one, and it was really creepy too, because they took her out shopping and she got a wedding dress. And so you see her in a wedding dress of, this is what she's going to wear to marry Steven and all that. And, but then the second half is her saying now all of a sudden that Stephen is guilty and she's afraid for herself. Oh, and the other thing they had done is they manipulated Stephen because so Stephen knew that she was going on the Dr. Phil show. And so Stephen thought he was calling her cell phone, but what they really did was they forwarded her number to the show and then they put him live on the air. Bad, bad, bad. Dr. Phil is a scumbag. Lower than low. And I wasn't somebody who watched the Dr. Phil show. Of course, I knew who Dr. Phil was and everything, but I wasn't, didn't watch the show and so didn't really have an opinion on him one way or another. But after I saw that, you're a piece of shit. Yeah, Kathleen started representing Stephen. So Making a Murderer came out in December of 2015. And then Kathleen took on the case of January of 2016. So, and that wackadoo chick came near the end of 2016, I want to say. I took over Stephen Avery project near the end of 2016. And all this stuff was happening around that time. So, yeah, so I believe that's near the end of 2016. Angela asking me about Sandy. I believe Stephen and Sandy are still in regular contact. I do not have any contact with Sandy. Sandy has actually done me wrong. So, and Sandy lies about me to Stephen because she wants to be who Stephen likes best. Even though so at the time that Stephen was talking to this other woman, Sandy got all upset and jealous and then started dating some pedophile at Stephen's prison, to like get back at him or whatever. Yeah, Chelsea, have we really been here that long? Yeah. We are at 10 years from making a murderer, but the actual case is October of 2005. So poor Stephen and Brendan. And I believe, um, now remember I said right is right, wrong is wrong. I do appreciate, from what I've seen over the years, that Sandy has been taking Stephen's dad to the prison. That's great. I'm glad, because Stevens lost his mother and his dad is in poor health, and he's elderly, and every day, as you get older, your health gets worse. So, I'm thankful that Sandy takes Alan to visit Stephen. I'm also thankful that Sandy, if Stephen is happy being in contact with Sandy, that's great, because whatever makes Steven's life better is fine by me. I wasn't the person ever involved in this that didn't want Steven talking to anybody else, and not trying to take ownership of Steven's time. So I'm I'm happy. But I do know that Stephen had personally told me that, he would never forgive Sandy for dumping him, and that, um, he's upset that she like takes credit saying that it's because of her that Kathleen Zellner's on the case, when that's not true. It was Stephen who got Kathleen Zellner, and it was Stephen that, now Sandy did as Stephen told her to do, but Stephen told Sandy to reach out to Kathleen. So it was Stephen that got her. And for, Sandy to, uh, dump him, and you hear about it on Making a Murderer when you watch the first one, where she dumped him because he didn't accept Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior or whatever. Um, so, but then when Making a Murderer came out and it was all, uh, popular, now Sandy's calling herself his girlfriend, and Steven's like, she's not my girlfriend and will never be my girlfriend again. She dumped me, and that's that. And then the other thing Stephen had told me is, he wants to have children. And obviously, Sandy's like, considerably older than Stephen, I believe, but also she's not childbearing age. So, um, what are Earl's thoughts? Craig is saying. Earl's another big old piece of shit. Um, oh my God, there's so much with Earl, and the secret recording devices he had in his house to try and watch young children changing into bathing suits. And then Chuck and Earl trying to sell Stephen out because they didn't want Stephen to get a piece of the salvage yard. They want it just for themselves. Uh, Chuck and Earl going on press at different times saying Stephen is guilty. Earl is the one that let Teresa's cousin search the salvage yard. Um, Earl is the youngest Avery. So, so Earl is the one that when the cops came for him, he tried to hide in a laundry basket underneath a bunch of clothes. And Earl is a big dude. So, and Earl and I have some history. I have been threatened by both Earl and Chuck. Kevin. Oh, thank you, Kevin. That's very nice of you to say. So, but the only Averys who have been with Stephen 100% are his mother, his father, and his cousin. I'm blanking on her name right now. Kim Ducat, who you see in Making a Murderer. Yeah, Earl is the big one. So Kim Ducat has always had Stephen's back. So those are the family members that have been good to Stephen. So, and now his mom is gone. And that's another just big travesty in this case, is that Dolores never got to see Stephen be free. So Paige, Stephen's mom died, and his father is still alive. So, but his dad is elderly and not in great health. So every day that Stephen is not freed is just another day closer to his dad not being able to see Stephen go free. So, yeah. Every time we do a live video or we make a post, we'll get people who get upset at our posts or whatever going, well, it would be nice if you could give us an update. There's no update here. Well, because there's no update to give you. That's what happens in these wrongful conviction cases. It's so easy to lock somebody up, and it's so hard to get that overturned and to get them back out. So we have nothing to report to you. Since it was the 10-year anniversary of Making a Murderer, I emailed Kathleen Zellner, and I said one of the big questions we get is, where is the case right now? So I asked her for something that I could post, and so she gave it to me, and I posted it. I copied and pasted exactly what she emailed to me. And the gist of it is they're still working with DNA and trying to find science to get him out. And every time you show them new evidence and the judge denies you, that stuff's a wash now. And you can't use that. So you have to get something else trying to get back into court. That's how you run out of there's nothing else. I mean, and everything Kathleen has shown over the years that they have uncovered should be enough to just open the doors and let both of those boys out. But just the way our system works, it is bad. It is bad. No, I was not wrongfully convicted. I advocate for two other women whose names are both behind me. This butterfly is Melissa Kaluzinski and Marnie Yang. And the way courts are able to just drag things out. So the Marnie Yang case, for example, we have court scheduled for Marnie next month. It's January 11th, 12th, and 13th or something like that. The Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for a stage 3 evidentiary hearing. But she was supposed to have that evidentiary hearing now well over a year ago. And so we go to court, and when we go to court, I am in the courtroom, and then something happens that kicks it back out. And then we have to wait again and get dates again. I mean, we've had ones when we thought, okay, this is supposed to be it. And so Marnie and Melissa's prison is, oh my gosh, I think from where that courthouse is, I think it's probably a 4-hour drive. And so Marnie was taken from her prison all the way up here. And Melissa and Marnie both tell me that jail is way worse than prison. So, and when you're coming back up here to go to court, they put you in the county jail. You don't want to be in the county jail. They're scared. They're scared of county jail. They would they're safer in prison than they are in county jail. So, so now Marnie's taken all the way, up here to go to court, and then something happens and it's not happening now. And now they push it back. And I think the last time we went to court for Marnie, it was either October or November. But then it was, well, our court shut down for the holidays, so now we can't do anything till January. So that's what happens in these cases. And Kathleen Zellner, who is the number one attorney for turning over wrongful convictions, she's got 20, I think, under her belt. So, and this is for an attorney. I'm not talking about the Innocence Project. That's a whole organization. That's all these different states or whatever. An attorney by themselves. Kathleen, if you are wrongfully convicted, you want Kathleen Zellner. But she says it typically takes her 15 years to overturn a wrongful conviction. And she just got the case in 2016. So, yeah, while this case happened in 2005, Kathleen's only been on it since 2016. So it has not been the 15 years. And so then we'll get a lot of questions on, where's Kathleen? Is she still with the case? Kathleen is on the case until either it ends or if Stephen gets bad advice from somebody who talks him into getting rid of Kathleen and firing her. So Kathleen Zellner is with the case, period. This page, Steven Avery Project, if there is ever any news in this case, any updates, we bring it to you as soon as we get it. If you see news on this case and it's not here, well, then send it to us because you're seeing it before we do. And so then we can get it posted. So I get that people want to hear news. I mean, and just imagine if you're Stephen and Brendan, that they want to hear something is happening. It just doesn't work that way. Years and years and years go by of nothing. So Steven Avery Project is here until the end. We believe in Stephen's innocence. The evidence shows that. And so we will continue to follow it and update whenever there is something to update. But just sadly, most of the time there is not. We just went live this month because it's the 10th anniversary of Making a Murderer. And then I did my yearly field trip that Bryce and I and my husband, we went up to Manitowoc and I filmed everything. So that's that. The Innocence Project is not working on Stephen's case. That is just Kathleen working on it. As far as I know, there is no Innocence Project involved in Stephen's case. Yeah, Amanda, Brendan's at the end of the road. There's nothing else that can be done for Brendan other than the governor letting him out, or, we get absolute proof that it was Bobby. But even if something comes out that, proof that Bobby did it, there's people that think that everything that Brendan was coerced to say was stuff that he did with Bobby, and that he was just covering for Bobby and said Stephen. But you don't even have to meet Brendan. You've all seen him on Making a Murderer. That boy cannot tell a lie. That boy cannot hurt anything. When I used to talk to him on the phone, so like his mom does not go visit him in November at all. It is just known November is hunting season. And I asked Brendan if he ever hunted. No, he can't hurt anything. And his cousin made that shit up about Brendan crying and losing weight because he's all upset, blah, 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 all that it's just all a bunch of shit. It would eat Brendan alive. You would see it all over his face if he witnessed or was part of in any way a woman being murdered. You know, this boy who talks about wanting a cat and, in Pokemon. And oh my God, in Brendan's case, trying to say that Brendan raped her. Are really, really? Do you really think that Brendan could even get an erection if Steven is, yelling at his his nephew to, rape this girl? Not happening. So, um, right. Yeah, the whole thing of all that stuff allegedly in Brendan's case happening in the trailer and there not being any evidence anywhere of Teresa Halbach. And I've done this over the years in videos, but it's like I don't know about you guys, but I can just take my hair and pull. I shed horribly. My DNA is everywhere. So that's hair just falling out of my head naturally. Cutting her hair, and then you don't find any hair in that trailer. That literally, that trailer is so small that if you walk down the hall, you can touch both sides, and you're dragging this girl out that you've raped. So there's bodily fluids there. You've stabbed her, cut her hair, all that. There's nothing, and there was also no DNA or evidence that Brendan was in the trailer. But then in Steven's case, since Brendan now wouldn't testify against Steven, there's no Brendan in Steven's case. Amanda, your vacuum. So in Steven's case, he just shot her in the garage. I don't know. It doesn't. None of it makes sense on how these two men can be sitting in prison, prosecuted by the same man, but two different theories of what happened to this poor woman. Ugh, it's horrible. So, all right, I'm going to bring this live to a close. I have been on here a long time. Um, so, um, thank you, everybody who has joined us on the live. Thank you to Christopher, our moderator, who's trying to make sure people are behaving in their comments. Thank you to Bryce and Natalie, who were sending me stuff, but I didn't even look on my phone. Sorry, guys. Um, I will say again, if you know anything about this case, please reach out to Kathleen Zellner. Do not assume she knows. So it doesn't hurt to send an email or call and leave a message, um, and tell her what you know. Continue to support Stephen and Brendan. Send them, go ahead and write them letters. Oh, another one of our biggest things before we go is people always ask us, can I write to Stephen and will he write me back? Chances are he's not writing you back. But you shouldn't write him a letter. I've said this before, and this is, I know I'm being an asshole when I say this, but you shouldn't be writing him just because you want a letter back from him. You're going to write him a letter because you want to boost his spirits. So you most likely won't hear from him, but that's fine. And I tell people, write him a letter, tell him about yourself, where you live, what you do in your life, all that kind of stuff, because you're trying to give him a moment of not having to think about his stupid case, right? Kelgan, take him away. So, and I said this at the beginning and I'll say it here at the end. I'm actually thinking of writing him, even though he doesn't won't talk to me. But I just want him to know that I still have his back, even though he doesn't have mine. So write to Stephen. I was sent a screenshot the other day that I guess there's a way that people can now email him, because that's actually what I do with Melissa and Marnie, that you're able to send it's like a text message email thing. So we'll make a graphic with the information on how you can do that. So go ahead and try and reach out to Stephen that way. So I don't deter people ever from reaching out to Steven. Just know, more than likely, you won't hear back from him. Same thing with Brendan. But if you do, great. But don't do it just because, you think of Steven being famous and you want a letter from the famous guy that you watched on Making a Murderer. Oh, and when is Making a Murderer Part 3 coming out that we always get? Nothing else will come out, and this is just my opinion, not fact. Nothing else will be released unless this goes back into court. So I would love for them. Bryce and I were just talking about this on our field trip because they filmed so much stuff that we didn't see. I would love some cutting room floor stuff. Christy, we do have Brendan's contact info, I think in the pinned thing on this page, but we'll get the contact, how to write to both Steven and Brendan posted again. So people can write to them. So when he's released. From your lips, John. All right. Gonna go. You never know when I'm gonna go live again. Probably the next time though I'd be going live wouldn't be till January, and it would be on my Justice with Jax page when I go to court for Marnie for a Marnie update. So, but if something happens in Steven's case, I go live. If something happens with Brendan, I'll go live. And then Melissa, and I left the picture in the car because we took a new picture today. But, so I've been visiting Melissa for 10 years. Yeah. So I visited her in her prison today, and we took a new picture that I posted on my personal page, and then I'll be posting it on Justice with Jax. So, but whenever we're going to go live, we try to give you a heads up. Christopher makes an event and gets it posted. And I will be downloading this video and the ones we made of the field trip and uploading them to the Justice with Jax YouTube, because Facebook now deletes all these after 30 days. So fall down that rabbit hole. Go to the Justice with Jax YouTube page. Go watch my interview with Kim Ducat. That's over there. Because that was, I got information on that nobody knew. And it's pretty mind-blowing. But, watch the video where the bus driver, there's no way she could see. There's a video of me walking in the salvage yard, and we timed it of how long it took us to walk from the office to where the RAV was found. So I've done the research. So, all right. I'm really going to go now. I hear my husband moving around downstairs too, wanting dinner. So thank you, everybody. As always, investigation continues.